as I clean each filter, I like to put it back into its position. So we're going to put the base in, and I wanted to show you something. See right here? It's kind of hard to see the white on white, but it actually says small grid. That's the small grid, and that way you can position this back where it needs to go. You'll see there's a little opening, and it will fit right in there like that, in the opening, and then down. Should rest right in the middle there. And so now that small grid is right here. It's going to be small because it's going to be up against this, and then I'm going to go back in order. I'm going to put all the filters back in one at a time after I clean them. This is a filter that's clean. Let me show you the difference between clean and dirty. Right? Pretty stunning. And again, be careful with these. They're plastic. The ribbing is. And so I'm going to start reassembling it now that it's clean back in its spot. Since this was the last one, it's going to go here. And as you can see, there's little keepers designed to help you get the filter right back into the right spot. It's got to be right there and right aligned here with that button. This tube is going to fit right on, as you can see, that little spot right there. And so that just makes sure that you're getting this right into the correct position, including this over here. You want that to be aligned. And then we're going to rebuild them all the way around, one by one, making sure they're in the proper position. So here I am in the middle of putting all the filters back in, and I just wanted to show you that I like to line them up first and drop them in, and you can actually feel when they're in the right position. They will sit properly. Might need to wiggle it around a little bit to get it to situate in with all the pins, like this one down there, but if you wiggle it around, you'll get to where you can feel when it's set in properly. So again, just going to continue going around the circle till I get them all done. So all the filters are back in position. You can see they're all clean and they're all put back into the proper position. And one thing I should mention here is what some people do is, and I've seen it written down, that when you actually take the filter and clean it, you're supposed to actually put it in a muriatic acid solution to help get rid of some of the calcium buildup that can build up in this filter material. I don't do that, so maybe that's a mistake on my part, not really sure, but I haven't really needed it, but I could see where if you wanted to do it the right way, that might be a good idea. There's instructions online about the correct way to mix it. So again, got those on. Next thing that I'm going to do is put that gasket on, and then coat all of the rubber, and then put the top piece on, and then of course put the whole unit back together and reassemble it. But first, another important idea, always fill this with water first. That way the pump isn't working so hard, it's not completely empty, and I'll show you that in a second. So I'm going to put the gasket back on. I don't think it really makes a difference this way or this way, but what does make a difference is you have to get it aligned with the screws. That does make a difference. It's easier actually to do with two hands, but I'll do it with one because I'm holding the camera. Come on. There we go. And down it goes. And now, importantly, you're going to see how these align. And they do all have to align perfectly and sit down perfectly. So if they're not aligning perfectly, move your filters to where they are. Just kind of give them gentle movements. You want to be gentle. This is all plastic, and unfortunately it's expensive plastic, so you don't want to have to go out and buy anything new because you clean this. Alright, so these are feeling pretty good to me. They're all down. This is down. Everything's down with the gasket. It's looking pretty good. The correct position. Everything's together. So now that we're going to put the top piece on, but first we're going to coat all this. You know, I don't think it necessarily matters what you get. I happen to use this Leslie's Pool and Spa Lube, and so again, I swear it's Vaseline, but who knows. Anyway, you're just going to take some, and you're just going to go ahead and put it on all those rubber parts, including this part here. And so that's what I'm going to do right now. It's easier for me to use two hands, so I'm going to do two hands, but that's what I do. So again, just to show you, I'm almost done here, but you know, it's pretty easy. You just want to take a pretty liberal amount, spread it on there pretty good. This is also a good time to make sure that you're wiping off any debris, because you want this to be nice and clean, this gasket and this joint here. So it's a good chance to use your finger to make sure you got all the little particles and whatnot off. And now that that's ready, we're going to put this top piece on. So I'll show you that. It's a little tricky. You want to line up, again, the screws here, and kind of easier to do it with two hands, but I'm going to use one just to show you. Line up those screws. There we are. And now this piece is going to fit very snug around this gasket, right? So it's kind of very gentle. And by the way, I'm going to go get a ball-peen hammer to use to hammer this down into position to make sure it's snug, but obviously you don't want to over-hammer. And here's the other tricky part. Now that you've got this on, right, all of these have to fit exactly so. And so I just moved one. I'm going to have to put it back into position here. But this is a little bit tricky in that they all have to line up. And what I do is kind of gently work them in and try to get that situated to where it wants to go down. It's kind of a puzzle. You got to do all of them at the same time, get them all lined up at the same time, and they love to move around. So I just kind of keep going around in a circle until I can get this top piece on and everything's secure. You're also going to be pushing down on this. You don't necessarily need to use a ball-peen hammer. You can just push it down hard with your hand, but you're going to want to make sure that it sits all the way down at the bottom. And I'll show you that once I get all of these aligned. All right? I got them all aligned and I'm just pushing it down. You want to do it kind of evenly all at the same time. Make sure all of these are snug. Should be all the way down and resting on that gasket all the way around for all of these, and this should be all the way down. So again, I'm just kind of very gently, it's all plastic, so you got to be gentle with it, pushing it down, getting it into position. Because if you break one of those tabs, you got to go basically get a new filter, because your machine system is not going to work anymore. So I'll get this all situated and then we're going to put the wing nuts back on. Top is securely in place. It's all the way down. So that's great. Now we're going to put the wing nuts back on. And again, don't drop it. You have to take everything out. So here we go with the first one. Make sure you don't cross thread it. Just screw it down. I'm going to do that for both of these. You want to screw this tight, but not so tight that you actually break any of the plastic, because again, these break easy. So it needs to be tight, but not so tight that you are going to break the plastic. All right, and here we go. I'll come back when I got both wing nuts on. Okay, the wing nuts are on, and what I do is I tighten both of them at the same time so that that puts all the pressure nice and even on all of these parts, making sure that the filters are aligned where they're supposed to be. And they are. You can see they've got these little holders that make sure that the filter sits on the outside of this. Keep everything nice and even. Looking good, looking good, everything's good. All right, so we're ready to fill it with water and then put the top on, then the ring goes on, and then we're going to put the screw on. All right, I filled it up with water. You can see here, it's full. So it's time to put the top piece on and then connect the rings together. You want to fill it with water because again, it's a little easier on the pump. It's got some water in there when you start it. All right, next up is putting the top piece on. So I have the top piece. I've closed this valve so that I know which direction it is. I want to make sure it's easy to see when I put it on. And then I want to make sure it's all lined. You can see there I've got a little issue. Let me fix that gasket right there. Make sure the gasket's all the way around, and then you're going to put the top piece on. You want the gauge to be facing you, of course. What I like to do is sort of turn it into position here. So kind of rock it back and forth, get it all seated. Gauge is facing out, so it'll be easy to read. Next up is to put the ring back on. Again, they're kind of a two-handed job, so I'm not going to hold the camera while I do this, but the ring has to sit right on that joint there, and then of course we got to put the screws back on, which I'll do. I'll show you that once I get the ring on. But again, kind of a two-handed job, and we're going to need the ball peen hammer for this job, because what we're going to do is situate this ring on tight and tighten it down with a ball peen. So have a ball peen handy and I'll be back. So I got it started. I still have to hold on to the ring, but I've got this started, and you can see the small washer is here, then you have your spring, then you have the big washer, and then the nut, the bolt that you're going to be tightening down. And so that's what we're going to start doing, is tightening that down, and then I'll show you the ball peen. Alright, so I have the nut hand tight. I've got my wrench on it ready to go. Again, we're just going to tighten this down, but as we tighten it a couple turns, we're going to want to go around with this hammer, and we're going to want to hammer all the way around in a circle to make sure that this is nice and tight up against the edge, see? So just give it a good hammering, go all the way around in a circle. Kind of helps. I would like to rest my knee on this part right here as I'm going around in that circle. And I'm going to just keep doing this. I'm going to tighten it a little bit, go around with the hammer, tighten, go around with the hammer, tighten, go around with the hammer, and that's going to make it nice and snug and even all the way around. So what I like to do, again, is screw that a little bit tighter, and then as it gets tight, I go around and I hammer this pretty good. Can give it pretty good hammers all the way around, work it around to where it's tight, and then I screw it down some more to where I get it almost closed. So for me, in my particular one, that's perfect. That's right where it needs to be. And then I tighten this screw nice and tight, and the nut rather, and the spring is nice and tight, and it's up against the body real well. So everything is ready. It's got to be able to take a lot of pressure, because it's got to hold those two halves together. So that's it. It's ready to go. In the meantime, I clean all the rest of everything else. I clean out this filter here. I clean out the filter here. I happen to have a salt cell. I use autopilot, and so there's a filter in here that I take out and clean. I also clean the skimmers. Basically, I get everything clean. Now we're ready to go. For my particular Pentair, I need 3.6 pounds of media, so I'm going to put that in next. It's ready to go. I'm going to open up all the valves, turn the power on, go fill it with 3.6 pounds of DE, and the pressure should be somewhere, for my particular unit, it's going to want to be somewhere around 10 to 14 pounds. Is where it lives when it's fresh and clean. So yours may vary depending on the size of the filter you have, but for me that's about where it is. So we'll check it in a second after I turn it on, and after I get all the DE in there. I've turned the pool back on, so all the valves are back on, as you can see, and the water is now flowing through the main filter basket, going through the pump. And you can see the pressure right now, about 10 pounds per square inch, which is great. And so what I want to do now, last thing, is get the air out of here. So we're going to go ahead and open this cap up, get that air out. There we go. Good deal. And now test again. We are at 10 psi, which is perfect.